All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started, man. Let's say we got Thomas Uylenbroek from, what is your gym now called? Did I say your name right? I probably didn't. I saw you make a face.
Don't
Let's,
worry, Thomas Uylenbroek, right? But so
wait, say that again, because I've been saying it wrong for years. So say that again, please.
Thomas
Your last name.
Uylenbroek.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Nobody says it right. Like there was one
Yeah.
who got it right.
Well, I was
Uh,
excited because I thought I had it right, which sucks. But anyway, so what is the name of your gym? And your gym is also in Colorado now,
yeah,
correct?
so I've been moving around a little bit due to COVID, right? I opened my gym right before COVID, so COVID made me shut down, so I had to move around a bit. So I've named it Ground Zero Roaring Fork Valley because
Okay.
we're kind of in the whole valley.
Interesting. So let me ask you right off the bat here. So obviously, were you born in the United States?
From the Netherlands.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a rhetorical. I mean, it's a question I know, but
So let's get that out of the way.
yeah. So what brought you here? Was it college or what?
Yep. Yeah, I went to Marshall in Huntington in West Virginia.
Okay. What was your like? What brought like? What was a big deal for coming from the Netherlands to go to Marshall? Like, what was your degree in, or what were you studying?
Um, so I was studying history and later business.
Okay.
Um, I just wanted to study in the Netherlands or in the United States,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like I found it, and it was kind of somewhat affordable compared to university I had seen before
Okay.
on TV and everything.
Yeah.
So I gave it a shot, and I was almost done with my own college in the Netherlands. So when I went to Marshall, I could do the graduate program, which like helped out.
Now were you training in the Netherlands already? Were you doing kickboxing or anything like that? Because I know you were teaching kickboxing there, right? I thought.
So no, I was
No.
doing um, I was doing all the other martial arts.
Really? Okay.
I did Chung, I did Tai Chi. Some dude taught me combat Tai Chi. Um, there was some karate. I didn't even do the judo, the other sport we're really good at.
Yeah.
Not until I went to West Virginia. Yeah, I
Well,
started doing like I call them real martial arts now.
yeah. Well, but that is kind of cool though, right? Like, because you came for one thing and you end up hooking up with those guys, and then really, I mean, obviously now you're just killing it. I mean, you got your own gym, which is like a far steer from just going to college, right, and
Oh,
learning history.
yeah, I had no idea I was going to go this way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty awesome. Now, the reason I was asking about kickboxing, we all know that Netherlands is huge for kickboxing, right? Like, I mean, it's
Uh,
kind of. But you didn't dabble in that, or was that interest? Is that something that everybody's in the Netherlands? Like, I just assume, it's kind of a dumb thing. It's
no,
just like when you're from
no,
Brazil, I think you do jujitsu. That doesn't mean you do, right?
not. So in the Netherlands, we have two main martial arts, which is judo, which people do, but it's not hugely popular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is high level, and then kickboxing. But kickboxing has kind of a negative vibe to it, or at least, especially when I was like, a kid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's actually kind of funny because the people from Brazil that I've talked to have said
Yeah,
the same thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that the
the,
common
the criminal.
thought around Brazil is that it's kind of like if you do Jiu-Jitsu, then you kind of might be not
Yep,
trustworthy or you might be a bit of a
might be a
shady
thug.
guy.
Yeah, you might be a thug or something like that. Yeah,
So that's
like
funny. So
in the
so
eighties, the kickboxers did a lot of like guarding drug shipments and stuff.
yeah. That's kind of wild, isn't it?
Yeah, so they were involved with that sort of thing.
Yeah,
And I guess that reputation lingers, you know.
yeah. Well, I mean, did you see anything like that, or did you hear anything like? That's like kind of a cool story, I guess, from the Netherlands. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were people are guarding shipments or something. I mean, it's obviously not something I've never heard of, but um, anything crazy? Not really.
That's the most of what I hear of. But I mean, there's been some shootouts over it.
Really? What kind of
Yeah,
shipment? Like drug shipments? Is that what we're talking about?
yeah, like obviously in like kickboxing matches, there's like a lot of betting going on, just like in boxing.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, but I'm not really an authority on any of that. I haven't really been in the country very much for the past 15 years, so
Yeah. So it's only been 15 years. I mean, how old are you now?
37.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not bad. No, I mean, Gary and I are really old, so that's not bad at all.
Well, I feel really young. I feel
Yeah.
really young.
So then everything you did then when you got to martial, I mean, you did MMA. Did you fight in kickboxing too, or?
So whenever I went back home for the summer or something, I realized I didn't do kickboxing.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu there wasn't there. So when I was a blue belt and I went back to the Netherlands, I was a god among men.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like my first tournament in the Netherlands, I took everybody down, right? Just double legs, single legs, anything I wanted. But in Huntington, in West Virginia, I didn't take a single soul down.
Yeah. Well, that's wild, isn't it?
Wrestling was bad because wrestling in West Virginia is pretty high level.
Yeah. Well,
Uh, so
so
I had to
did they
tell my
want you to stay and teach anything or anything like that, or not really?
no, yeah, I taught here and there, and I started a little club back in the Netherlands, and they'll still kind of train.
Oh, are they? Well, that's awesome.
So I visit them when I go home, and I train with my people.
So this has zero to do, and it's kind of a weird question, but this is what I think of when I hear the Netherlands. Everybody I meet from the Netherlands is like a swinger, or they go to like sex parties. Like, I know that took a turn really quick, but I just want to throw that out
I
there.
didn't know this kind of podcast, but
Yeah. No, literally, I'm not even joking. Like everybody I meet, because it's like I'm like, oh, it's cool for Netherlands, and I asked like literally the same question. I'm like, you into kickboxing or something? Because I love this and that, and they're like, no, but I go to a lot of sex parties, and I'm like, well, that's not what I was talking about. But I swear to God, it's like a common thing. I don't know. Now they're older too, like so I don't know if it's maybe like
maybe
different generation or something.
maybe it's a thing I'll get into when I'm older.
Maybe that's what I'm saying. Like
Like
most of these people are,
I don't
yeah,
know.
they're
I've been places. I've done some things.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like prostitution is legal, so
Well, yeah, and that's why because right, like
the
the red
country
light district is
perception
kind
of
of
it is a little lighter, I think.
yeah. Well, everything that's I think is lighter, right? Like so, I'm saying I know that's like a weird question, but it's like those conversations. Every time I meet somebody, they lead down this crazy way, and I'm like, God, all right. And so I'm just curious, like,
Maybe they're just trying to shock you.
well, I'm sure they are to a degree, but then every time after that I see them, they bring it up again. So I really think they're actually inviting me to through their party.
Well, that's what I was wondering if you were just trying to invite me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
yeah.
trial balloon.
Yeah, and I don't. That's not going to be for me, But it's interesting. I mean, it's like that's also kind of a funny thing because when people, it's like I need to start finding better responses to when people like ask me to do stuff like that. Like I don't know what to say. I'm like, well, thank you, but no, I don't know. It'd be like similar to I guess a girl rejecting somebody.
Charge 5 grand or something.
Well, yeah. That's the problem. I don't really think it has anything to do with me whatsoever. I'm 99% sure that when I'm invited to this, they're just hoping my wife shows up, which. So, anyway.
The case with all these situations, yeah.
Yeah, it typically is. It's like those goofy things. But anyway, sorry, Gary, for taking it wrong different way there. But honestly, it was the whole time he was talking, I was like, wonder if he's a swinger too, like all the other people. So, all right, let get it out of the way.
Don't confirm, don't deny.
Yeah, yeah. So then let's finish. Like, let's get off the swinging thing for a second. So then you're doing, like I said, I've seen you fight and you've done a bunch of stuff. So how many tournaments and all that stuff did you do while you're here? Like in the last 15 years? Probably a lot, right?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu tournaments and like smokers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So many.
Is jiu-jitsu your main love, or do you like MMA the most, or what's your thoughts?
I really do like MMA because it's super free, but I don't really like the fact that people get hurt.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't really want to hurt people and do brain damage and everything.
Yeah.
I love the whole idea of it. But that's why jiu-jitsu is so amazing because you can go 100.
Yeah. And I've had that problem. So when I started boxing,
Still my still box 2, 3 times a week.
Yeah. Do you still?
Yeah, yeah. I teach class in privates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the main thing I struggled with in the '90s when I started boxing was originally was exactly what you just said. I was like afraid to hurt somebody. Not that I thought I was tougher than somebody, but it was the thought that I'm gonna have to punch this guy in the head till he's knocked out. And then, every year you watch these people that die in boxing, right? Like their head hits the canvas or their, the ropes or it's like,
Recently, the bare knuckle guy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Another one. Yeah. So it's like, that's kind of how I looked at it when I went into these fights. I'm like, which may be a little bit overblown, but it's like somebody could die. It's kind of way I look at it. And I had a hard time with it. And obviously we get over it, like but it was rough at the beginning. And really, like, I really don't know if I ever even said this, but like I think my first fight, for example, is how I got over it. Is like I knew somehow I got a bye to the finals. It was a Golden Glove, so I went to the finals. I got a bye, and I knew who I was going to fight. So we met. So that was like a Friday night because you go and then you fight again on Saturday. And then, so I met the guy, and then, I was talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, I guess we got to fight." Not, the normal awkward conversation when you got to fight somebody. But then his like little daughter came up. She was like 3 or 4, and then she was like, "Please don't hurt my daddy," and all this stuff. And so it added to the anxiety I already had. I was like, "God, this is awful." Yeah. Then so it literally I had a hard time sleeping all night. I mean, plus I was amped for the fight anyway, so it was pretty shitty. And then. So anyway, then we finally fight on Saturday, and it was sure enough, like the first round, I could hear his daughter, which was good for me. Like literally, I could hear like, "Beat his ass, daddy, kick his ass," and I was like, "That little effing girl," like. But it fixed everything because I was like, it just reminded me, like, oh, okay, like this is what we're here to do, which I already knew, right? But it's
Psychological warfare early.
yeah. So then I fought the fight. I tried my best and did what I could do, and luckily won. But like. I never had that problem anymore per se. Like, I mean, I'm still that way, meaning that I would probably in most cases be that guy that didn't hit somebody kind of extra, but maybe not. I don't know when you're in there. Now that being said, too, in jiu-jitsu tournaments, like I've probably popped like 3 or 4 people's elbows. Like
Quite a few.
yeah, I get really pissed if you don't tap. So like it's kind of like a different. I guess because I know if I'm punching in the face, I could kill you. If I'm gonna break your arm, I'm like you're gonna live. But it's one of those things like if you go light and the guy doesn't tap, you're like okay, well next time I get it, or this time like give you a chance.
I had a guy, a Krav Maga guy, come this week, and he was like that.
Yeah,
Like
that's the worst, isn't it?
like I have his arm fully extended, and obviously it's tight.
Mm-hmm.
He refuses to tap, and then I'm like, I can't let him go because he's kind of like a spaz,
Yeah.
and so I have to kind of extend and extend and extend. And he was
Yeah.
not he was like, "Yo, don't let me go that far. Don't make me."
Yeah.
Terrible. It just feels terrible.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't think about when I'm competing, I don't have any of those thoughts of whether or not I'm hurting somebody or not hurting somebody. Obviously, it's only been jiu-jitsu and I wrestled in high school, but it's never like in the moment I'm thinking whether or not I'm hurting the guy. But afterwards, like I'm more concerned with the emotional aspect. I know how bad I feel after I lose a match. So I try not to, and I dare anybody to find like a victory photo where I'm like jumping up and down and like, yeah, because I don't do that. Like I want to try and stay as mellow as possible because I know what it feels like to have somebody beat you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't mind if my arm's broken, but if my arm's broken and somebody's standing over top of me and flexing and pulling their gi open and like beating on their chest, like I don't want that to happen. So I won't do that to other people. And that's the thing that I try and like, I'll raise my hand and then I go and hug my coaches and my friends and that's it.
Yeah. No, I think everybody should be like. I think it goes back to kind of there should be somewhat of a warrior code, right? Like meaning that you should have respect for the guy going in, especially like in the stuff that we're doing. It's a little bit different if you're Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury who hate each other and go in and they're going to try to kill each other, talk shit afterwards, and even they are pretty respectful afterwards, trying to be. But if you're in a jiu-jitsu tournament, like there's zero reason to be a douchebag. Zero.
Like
There's no reason.
when it's all locked in.
Yeah.
Like I don't worry about hurting anybody like passing their guard or something. But
Yes.
I have an armbar locked in. Don't make me break it. We both know you need to tap.
Yeah. I,
Checkmate.
w- yeah, and I wonder if that's more now that all of us are like higher level. Like I wonder if that's more of a white blue belt thing.
I broke people's arms more as a white and blue belt than later
That's
for sure.
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because most of the thing, if I can go back and think, it's like a lot of white blue belt tournament, and then like if I did some Japanese jiu-jitsu tournaments, like those guys didn't tap ever. I remember like same thing. They're
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, that's what I noticed when I get new people in and they've done like a traditional martial arts with Krav Maga before.
Yeah.
They just go hog. They have
Wonder what. Well,
they're so mellow.
yeah. Krav, I kind of get since I dabble in Krav a little bit, and like the whole philosophy is attack, right? They're like blitz attack. I kind of get it in a weird way, right? Because it's probably drilled into their head, and then they don't realize like, all right, well, this guy can hurt me right now. Like they're also not actually hitting each other in Krav Maga. So even though they look like they're going deep shit, they're not really. What's that?
They don't really spar very much, do they?
No, it's more like I'm hitting you. Like that, it's the demonstration thing. Like, yeah, grab my throat, and then the guy's like, bah, 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 but they're not really doing anything. Or it's like what I've noticed, and this is no knock on Krav, but they have a lot of the instructors that some of those crazy or traditional people do on McDojo, where it's like the Krav people will hurt you so that you never challenge them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so they immediately like torque the wrist lock or something.
Absolutely. And so for people that know what we're talking, and again, I'm not knocking Crowd. There's a lot of these guys. I've run into them a bunch. Like I've been asked to teach jiu-jitsu seminars to some, yeah, and I've been asked to teach some jiu-jitsu seminars to like some traditional karate people, and then they'll be like I'll say, hey, you want to show me stuff? I'm just trying to be, trying to be nice. We'll exchange information. And the next thing I know, like they're trying to rip my finger off, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, you got to do that. I'm like, no, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make me scared to fight back on your stuff. Well, what if I got you in a choke or an armbar and I do the same thing to you? Like, now we're both dickhead. Like, what are you doing? This is not.
Now we just kind of have to fight.
Yeah, yeah, because, yeah, like.
That's not what I wanted. Yeah. Now I had somebody come down. He said he was a brown belt, but he was an older man. And I think I didn't realize he was a brown belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. I don't think he knew the difference. So he started showing me wrist locks and immediately started torquing the shit out of my wrist.
Which is, yeah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, like, okay, I know this basic stuff, okay? And you don't have to like immediately break my wrist.
Yeah.
Please.
And I don't know if you guys agree, Gary. You can chime in too. But like, this has always been my thought, and this is my philosophy. I don't know if anybody agrees or not. But anytime I've seen that, I think it's one, so the student never talks back, right? Like, never challenges the so-called master, because a lot of times those guys like don't spar anyway. Meaning like the traditional guys, like you. Well, there's the no-touch knockouts, which are super crazy because they basically like put everybody in a trance and they fall over. So that's a real cult, right?
That's some Scientology shit.
Yeah, but exactly. But a lot of these, again, and I'm not knocking martial art. It's just because there's bad people and everything. There's bad people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? But it's
Bad people and everything for sure.
yeah, and it would be the same in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Is if I'm demonstrating an arm bar or something, and I do it and I crank your elbow. Right. The theory is, again, I'm trying to make sure that guy knows, don't fuck with me because I'm going to do this again, which is also not fair because you're also doing it in an environment where you're showing a move, like, and I've been to, like, yeah, and I've dabbled in like a lot of these guys' seminars, and it is ridiculous because the way that they'll flow and they'll twist your finger in your wrist, and like, there's no reason to do that stuff, like, whatsoever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Excessive, yeah.
Yeah, it just it blows my mind. But again, it is what it is. Like, it's just if you run into that, I would steer clear. Just thing that I've noticed, steer clear from those people because if a guy's having to do that, then they're bullshit anyway. You don't have to like impose dominance in that kind of way. That'd be like me throwing my kids down. What's that?
I don't believe in that either now.
No, it's goofy, man. It's goofy. So But anyway, like, so what? I guess let's get back to what you're teaching now in Colorado. What all you got at your school right now?
So I mostly just teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Kickboxing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. But I teach Jiu-Jitsu every day, and I've got kids classes and teen classes and adult classes. So I'm doing
And
shit.
where at in Colorado are you?
It's in Newcastle, which is by it's not too far from Aspen, like an hour.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, do you get a lot of people that are like outsiders, or is it mostly just people that live in Colorado?
I get a fair amount of visitors in the summer season, but there's not a whole big jujitsu scene here.
That's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of other activities going on, so maybe that's been a problem.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice because there's a lot of people that kind of move here to
Hmm.
the from outside, and then they have a lot of them have had some jujitsu before, so I picked up a lot of blue belts and a couple purple belts from outside.
Yeah. When I was in,
Oh,
go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say now. I think Seth Daniels is from the Colorado area,
Yeah, yeah,
who
he's in
runs
Denver.
Fight to Win, and he doesn't he do competitions. Do you go to his competitions or?
He runs Fight to Win in Denver, and we go to them.
Yeah, Seth's first of all, Seth, great guy,
Yeah,
amazing guy, doing
guys.
more for jujitsu, I think, than maybe anybody nationally anyway, as far as like Fight to Win and like promoting like big guys and like making sure that athletes get paid. I was lucky enough to be on one of the earlier Fight to Wins. I was on Fight to Win 32, and like for that for me made me kind of feel special. All he's got that flow grappling connection. So like I mean, I think he's pretty awesome. But I was going to say, he has and is it the one or something like that he runs? But is that in Colorado or is that in Colorado? Or I'm not sure what his regular thing is.
I don't know if he runs a gym or if he just kind of co-owns it or whatever, or just attends it. But I know he trains in Denver somewhere. I forgot what the gym is. There's like 17 gyms in Denver. It's
Okay.
crazy.
Hmm. I was when I was there last time. It was funny because a lot of the locals were saying that they're actually annoyed at the big influx of people coming. They're like, and I think I asked, yeah, my Uber or taxi driver something about it, and he's like, just it reminded me of, like, some movies you see or something. But he was pissed. He's like, oh, this is bullshit. He's like, I used to go in a bar and get a beer for $1. It's like now these fucking hippies are here and I'm buying beers for $5, $10, and same bar I went to my whole life, and on and on. But like I would never have thought of it. You would think the influx is good, but I think I was asking too because of the drug, like where they legalize a lot of stuff, like shrooms are decriminalized. I don't know what else, but I know weed is that, and like that brought a lot of people in. I mean, especially the weed thing early on because there's only a few people that were doing that.
Weed is a giant industry for sure. The thing is, like, the rent is already too damn high, and there's not a lot of room, I guess, to build a lot of houses.
Really?
Oh yeah, and like the roads are getting really congested with all the
Yeah.
yeah. So no, I noticed that attitude for sure. They don't want people from Texas or California.
No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
They're
they were.
very, people are they have stickers on their cars and everything.
Yeah, and they were definitely mad, and it was like new hotels are popping up, like big hotels. I mean,
All
it's
over the
booming.
yeah, yeah, it is freaking amazing. But so a lot of people come here and then they go ski or raft or something. So they have
Yeah.
their whole weekend already planned out. So planning a jujitsu class in there is probably kind of difficult. But I get quite a few still. I had a purple belt this week in a couple classes.
Really? Well, that's pretty awesome, though. For people that don't know, when you talk about Colorado, most people say that those people are incredibly fit and everybody's in shape, but it's because most people are doing stuff. Like you said, it's different than like,
Farm
obviously,
there's
yeah,
hills everywhere. You can climb in the summer. You can climb in the winter. You can go on all the rivers. Run
yeah.
every yeah.
As opposed to like in West Virginia, for example, where I live, like, and you were there. I mean,
Yeah,
still, yeah, you were in Huntington, but like in a lot of places, there is not even a sidewalk. You don't have the choice to walk somewhere. Like,
exactly. No, but
yeah,
you do. People cycle everywhere because there's good bike paths. There's great trails that are maintained everywhere. So yeah.
Which is awesome. And I remember when I was talking to you one time. Were you going paddleboarding one time?
Sorry.
Were you? I think I was talking to you one time. Were you going paddleboarding one time?
Yeah, yeah, all the time.
Do you?
Just
Well, that's pretty cool.
yeah, just on the river. It's getting cold now.
Yeah.
About a couple weeks until snow, but uh, yeah, summer is amazing here.
Huh.
Just down the river.
Gary, have you ever paddleboarded before?
Nah. I've whitewater rafted and I've jet skied, and on water outside of fishing, that's about all I've done.
Yeah. I'm not a big water person. I was just gonna say I paddleboard one time. It's not
Water sports.
yeah, well, paddleboarding, I don't know if it's a great big person thing. I got on an inflatable paddleboard and it bent in half.
Oh,
Yeah,
you are kind of a giant, aren't you?
yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but it definitely was. Wasn't made for an inflatable paddleboard. That's for sure. I had a bloody nose and everything. I like it busted in half. I drowned in whatever. It was not good. And it looks awesome. And I wish I had a better story that was like fun. I could say how great it was. I can just say I got a freaking bloody nose.
Relaxing and like just the scenery here is so gorgeous. It's like West Virginia, but like more maintained, I guess.
Yeah.
More accessible, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, it's awesome that you're running that gym down there and doing and still kicking some butt. And that's kind of why I wanted to have you on here. I mean, like from the little that I knew. I mean, obviously we're close enough because you guys were in Huntington. A little bit of that I knew of you, and I think really we probably paid attention to each other more online than anything else, right? But I would just see all the stuff you posted, and that was awesome. Like, am I correct that you have? What is your specialty in jiu-jitsu? Is it more like open guard? Am I right there or wrong?
I'm kind of like a butterfly guard person.
That's what I thought. Okay. So what drew you to butterfly guard? What really excited? Let's get into, since this is kind of like all three jiu-jitsu guys. Maybe we should talk some jiu-jitsu for a second.
So straight up, that was my first move that I was ever taught, and I just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah.
And like Sprout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And-
Sprout taught me that,
Yeah.
and I've just been learning from Sprout, my white and blue belt, and that stuck with me, and it just really worked for me, and I'm able to get that hook in from everywhere, so I just keep working with it,
Are
and
you, are you doing a lot of leg locks from there now? Is it
yeah,
transitioned?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's super easy. Yeah,
Which is awesome.
yeah, yeah. Like I didn't do that before, but now that that's a thing, it was
Yeah.
super great. But I think my favorite thing to do is probably like to flip him up to X guard.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
you-
that's kind of my go-to too. Whenever I go butterfly, if I have butterfly hooks, I'm looking to go to X guard.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah.
It's just
Why
such a
does-
great feeling when you have somebody loaded in the X guard.
Yeah. So why do you guys like that the best out of that?
I can tell you, for me, it was Marcelo. Like watching Marcelo use his X guard, like that's the reason I did it. I was like, if he's the, I still think that he's the best ever. Like, I mean, because of his size and whatnot, he was beating giants and what. So I think he's the best. And if Marcelo does it, it must be right. So then I did it.
Yeah. Okay.
Same logic I used, pretty much. Marcelo did it. I got his book. I followed it, and it worked for me. So I kept on the path.
Huh. Well, that's pretty awesome. So and nothing. So that's still. I mean, so would you, if you went to guard, then you guys are. Well, I know Gary what you do, but I mean, are you shooting butterfly then all the time, kind of deal, more or less?
Maybe like a half guard, half butterfly kind of situation, like a knee shield butterfly.
Yeah.
But I don't really like naming that position because
No.
it's always a little bit in flux. I don't want to hang out too much in one spot.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is interesting how things have changed anyway. Like I said, I remember when you're doing butterfly and open guard, like there wasn't a ton of people doing that a ton. So that's why like it stood out to me. And I remember there's a guy, I think Manuel Lopez, very good, and Sampy from Morgantown, and a bunch of guys like really. I enjoyed watching them roll because they were so calm, and somebody could be like they couldn't pass their butterfly, and they, or even if they almost did, they'd always recover, and they're just always keeping somebody off balance.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And so what I'm saying, like, really, is that the cool part was that was like a big deal probably 10, 15 years ago. Now that's like the norm, right? Everybody's doing that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I imagine so. Like you kind of have to. It's kind of like
Absolutely.
I call it a meta game because
Yeah.
because everybody's playing it. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to know at least something, or you're just gonna kind of find yourself lost.
Yeah. Well, and exactly right. Like, so are you enjoying more gi jiu-jitsu now or no gi?
Um, so I teach a little bit more no gi than gi,
Hmm.
but I can't say I have a favorite.
Okay.
I like them both a whole lot. They both teach me so many things. Like
Yeah.
gi is probably better for me because I can slow things down, and I got a lot of younger guys now that are pretty energetic. So a
Yeah.
little
Well,
bit of control helps.
yeah, Gary and I talk about that all the time. That's what if I was going to steer, like for example, I got an email from somebody the other day that was just asking where they should start, and most of them, because they don't know any better, they go to no gi, right? Because maybe you watch UFC on there, and they just don't even they think the gi
Yeah,
is
maybe don't
useless.
play gi. That helps probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so like, but that's what I was trying to explain to him, and I was like, this new person email, I was like, hey, first of all, I would argue that you may learn a little bit better in the gi just because the game is slower. You can break it down, and I think it's an invaluable tool to kind of do the basics at the beginning because you're really somebody's really holding you down. You've got to do things perfect, like, and
You know
it's
what?
like,
If you're in a fight, how often
mhm.
are you taking? You know,
Yeah, well, I know we always joke about that, right? So,
everybody's got a t-shirt on at least.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely, yeah, and I just think, I mean, for example, I have a bunch of guys at our gym that have done primarily no gi and haven't dabbled in gi at all, and they're very good. I could just see some giant holes where they didn't have the straight fundamentals and the basics, and things slowed down because the gi game is faster. I mean, I even back like in the day when I was rolling with Hoist Gracie and those people, like in the no gi, like I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I was hanging with Hoist Gracie, but like I was doing okay. Like the matches were a lot longer than they were in the gi, and
yeah,
even he said something one day.
new people,
Yeah,
like everything.
yeah, and that well, and it's he used to gi choke the hell out of me, you know. And so when we took that off, like he didn't have that, you know, and so that was the thing. But that's what you know, one of the things we said at the end because like I was all proud of myself, and he probably could see that I was happy, you know. And he was like, "Hey man, it don't matter how good you do in ogi, because it's just about being athletic and you're bigger than me and blah blah blah." You know, he just really kind of burst my bubble, basically.
I noticed that a lot too. Like the athleticism matters a lot more in no gi, and that's why
Yeah,
sometimes like later in the week I prefer gi.
yeah, well, it makes sense, and that's the same. Like when I run a tournament, we do gi and no gi. That's why I put the gi first too, because it slows it down. Like a lot, because the first one, and I know people do them different way, but I used to do no gi first, and then I had a lot of people just complain. They're like, "Man, by the time I get to the gi, I'm too wore out. Like I went too fast," you know.
And then they
Um,
don't have powerful grips or anything. Yeah.
yeah. Now I've had it the other way too. Like, but I had more complaints the no gi way. But I did have some complaints where people are like, my grips are so fried. I can't use my hands, so I can't do the no gi right. Like, it goes both ways, but it was more probably brought to my attention to move the no-gi just because people are like, man, I'm just, you know, we're going wrestling, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's just really crazy, and I have no energy left, you know. So are you doing any tournaments in Colorado then? Do they have
Uh,
any? And obviously they have their fight to win guy.
they've been happening. Grappling Industries and Fight to Win have been back on their feet.
Yeah.
We've been to those in the past couple months in Denver. So most of the tournaments happen in Denver. That's kind of the problem.
Okay.
There's there's very little like smaller tournaments like you know you used to have kind of an independent tournament, not one of the big names like Naga or something.
Yeah.
So I'm having a hard time finding stuff like that around here.
Okay.
So I'm
How
trying in house.
how far from Denver are you?
It's like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And
See, and
like
that was the thing for me in Ohio. Besides Butch, when he would do things in Parkersburg, which was like an hour and 40 minutes from my house or whatever, I would have to, and sometimes Columbus, and thankfully, you know, Grappling Industry started doing stuff in Columbus, which was about the same. It was equidistant to Butch to do something in Parkersburg as it was to Columbus for me. But other than that, it was Cincinnati or Cleveland.
Yeah, so
driving, or I could go to Pittsburgh, but it was like a 3 hour drive to go to, a 3.5 hour drive to go to compete. And a lot of times, if it wasn't Grappling Industries or if it wasn't Butch's, like might be a 3 hour drive to compete once.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what I have now too, because now I'm a black belt. There's a lot less competitors, especially at my weight.
Yeah, it makes it tough, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating sometimes. Like I kind of try and message the person before I go up to make sure that they're there.
Yeah.
But I have enough students now too, so that a lot of times I'm just too busy coaching.
Which is nice. Huh?
Yeah, it's nice, but it's exhausting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what a workout that was until I brought like 10 people to the tournament once.
Yeah, and people don't realize it when it is tough, right? Because a lot of times there's multiple people competing at the same time. You're running back and forth. It's a little hectic, and then I would argue that the anxiety level is a lot higher, right, coaching than it is competing.
Careful to see your teammates compete because you can't do it for them.
Yeah, and then half the time you're trying to talk in code because you don't want to be like, hey, there's the arm bar, right? You're like, it's there, like you're trying to, like, hey, we do this every day. You're trying to throw stuff out. Yeah. It is I mean, Gary, like I'm sure you agree, all of us agree, right? Like, and I think it's kind of cool for people to know if they don't know. I mean, because I've been coaching people since like the '90s, right? There's boxing, kickboxing, and everything, and it is stressful, right? And then that's jujitsu is one thing. It's fine. It's jujitsu, but like especially MMA or combat sports, when I've had to coach those guys, it's really stressful because the anxiety level's up. Sometimes you're running the night before, somebody's pulling some BS at the weigh-in, like maybe starting a fight, or the other team's camp's a dickhead. And quite honestly, it's funny. I run, and I think it's universal, like because I go to everything, like run into more crazy people in boxing, and I have no idea why. Because you would think these MMA people are like lethal weapons. They could do boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, everything. Most of those people are super respectful, super nice. But I would go to anytime it's a boxing fight, somebody have a shirt on and like fuck you and your team. They'd be like, give you the finger. Like hell, one time we were at a boxing thing in Ohio, which I think I told you about, Gary. One time Sam Jones put it on, but he put some MMA fights in between and maybe some kickboxing. And like the boxers were starting fights with our fighter, like in between. They were just like staring them down, and then somebody would be like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" And they'd be like, "Fuck you! I'll kick your ass." Like it was like the weirdest thing. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, like I just I don't understand why it comes from that. I mean, maybe it's I don't know. Maybe people take the hype too seriously. I don't know what the attitude is, or I don't know. I really don't know. I've literally thought about that my whole life because I feel like we can argue that MMA comes from martial arts, but it doesn't anymore. It's not, what I mean? Like we're not having people bow and do all this respect for the most part. So you can't give the thing that, hey, well, they come from martial arts background. That's why they're more respectful, because that's not true. Like at my gym, we do nothing that's traditional. We just
bow on and off the mat or something.
No, I'm fine. Like my instructor doesn't, Marcelo Monsiero, all that. I don't. I just think it's the dumbest thing I've ever saw. But it's okay. Like, and again, everybody else probably want to kick my ass for saying it, but I get it. And the people like I've asked them, and
different perspectives on this because I have my own perspective too.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I think. You tell me what you think first, and then Gary, you can say I don't think Gary's a bower either. I don't think. Let's find out. So tell me your thoughts on why you think, or you for it? Are you for the bowing thing?
So I'm not really pro the bowing thing, especially not two people.
Yes.
But I ask my kids especially whenever they step on or off the mat to bow.
Okay.
It's like opening a door to a new room. When you step on the mat, we're doing jiu-jitsu. When you step off the mat, you're doing whatever. And it's kind of like sort of programming your body too to respond. Like every time I bow, my body knows, oh, we're gonna do jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever heard of Neuro-Linguistic Programming,
yes,
it's got an idea from there. So I kind of use it as to build sort of a trigger and to like change your mindset a little bit. but I don't make it mandatory. I just ask people to do it.
Okay, well, that makes sense. It's like you're turning the switch on, quote
Yeah.
unquote, beast mode type junk, right?
Beast mode.
Yes, exactly.
Very
So
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
and quite not like so you're like, and I've heard some great answers from people, right? Like that. Like I agree with you 100%, but I'm still not going to do it, right? Like, or I'm not going to ask somebody, but and I mean that nicest way. Like I really do. Like it's just like it's just not my thing. I don't. And when I see other people now, if I went to a gym and they're all doing it, like I do it. I try.
Just to
Yeah,
respect the place. Yeah.
yeah. I do what I can. I forget.
Like I've been to crazy places where you had to bow to the picture and everybody had to wear white gi and like, come on, man.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing though. When I go into your house, though, I'm going to follow your rules. Period. Like if I go to just somebody's house and they say, "Can you take your shoes off?" Like I don't
Sure.
take my shoes off in my house, but like you know, what I mean, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to your house, and that's what I agree with that 100%. I'm never going to be a douche to the
No,
best
because
of my ability. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you think about that, Gary? What's your perspective?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like every place has its own form of respect, and I will respect anybody's rules regardless. And if I can't respect, if I don't feel that I can follow those rules, then I won't put myself in that situation. So if they want me to bow on the mat, then I'll bow on the mat. And if they want me to bow off the mat, then I'll bow off the mat. And if I'm visiting and they ask me to bow to pictures, I will. But we don't live in feudal. In my personal perspective, and when I talk about my guys, my kids bow to the adults as a form of discipline because really that's what they're there for. The parents want them there for discipline. They need to learn, and I need to keep some semblance of order. So I will have the kids bow, but my adults are usually hobbyists. They're not competitors, and I'm not going to ask them. They're paying me. I'm not going to ask them to bow to me as though I'm some sort of master. We don't bow in my academy in Ohio. We don't bow to pictures or me. I'm your friend, and you've asked me to help you along this path, and that's what I'm going to do. We don't live in feudal Japan. It was a little bit different then, and you probably should. You know, they were housing you, and they were feeding you, and they were giving you all these tools, and now you are defending the emperor or whatever it is, and that's the reason you had to do that is because you were in feudal Japan. I live in the United States of America and I love it. And I don't necessarily think that that's something that we need to do. I wouldn't bow to the president and I don't expect the president to bow to me. And I don't expect, we are all people. And for me, that's where I'm at. If it was a different culture, I would do it. In some places, the culture is to bow, but it's not for me.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom. It looked like you want to say something.
Yeah. So that's why I do it when I step on somebody else's mat too. I just bow because it's for me. That's what I tell people too. I bow. You could also do it because for me, I'm making that trigger for myself, and it could have been anything else, I guess. Like it could be a little dance or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Step on the mat, but it just happens to be the bow, and it's martial artsy.
Yeah. No.
But so you were saying that you were asking your kids to bow. So because so I don't have any kids, but I teach kids now, and a lot of the parents want like discipline, but I'm just kind of making a horde of little wild monsters. Like I'm just teaching them to roughhouse better at this point.
Right. However, in order to teach them, there still needs to be a semblance of discipline.
Yes.
And right. And there needs to be a definite that I am the teacher and you are the student in that situation. So when I've got 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds who are looking at like it helps reinstill the idea that they need to listen to me and that they need to follow my instruction. And that's the only reason I do it. I don't feel that it has any other thing other than, oh, that's right. If Gary's talking, then I need to listen. If Gary's talking, I need to be quiet. And that's the only reason I do it. It's just one more way of making sure I have attention.
Sure. Yeah. Because so the parents are all. A lot of the parents ask about. They think martial arts will automatically instill discipline in their kids, but I don't believe that at all. And it's kind of. I'm not sure how to answer the parents at this point when they ask me that. So what do you guys say?
Well, yeah, and I tell them kind of a similar story. So a lot of people call and the call actually says, "Hey, I want to sign my kid up for karate, even though we don't have karate, right?"
Say,
And yeah, and so I run through that first, what the difference is, and they're fine. They just don't know the terminology. But if they're looking for karate, right, I don't actually spend a lot of time trying to make them not come. You know what I mean? Like, or to come. I say, hey, here's my thoughts on traditional karate. I think it's great for kids, and if that's what you're looking for, go. And I will also be honest with you. I think they're more structured, and you'll get better discipline with them if that's solely what you're looking for. I really, and
okay.
it's not to say that we don't have that at our class. I don't teach the class, and the reason I don't teach our kids class is I'm not great with kids. I have 3 kids, and they're a disaster, right? so, so I, yeah, I know my limitations, right? We cuss, we say all kinds of stuff. Like they're different, right? So my kids instructors are great, right? They do all the things that I am not good at. So identified a problem. I know it's a problem and put them in there. And I am proud every time I go. They're like, the kids don't listen. Like, Wes in particular, one of our kids instructors, always like, hey, when I am talking, you're not talking, and he'll yell at them. And if they don't stop, then he makes them run and do push-ups and do all this stuff that really a traditional karate class would do.
Yeah.
So it's not that far off. Now, I know some traditional karate, and it's not all traditional martial arts play. They even keep records of somebody's grades and do all this other stuff, which I think is awesome, right? Like they'll say, hey, like maybe a parent will call and say, little Ricky's doing bad at school. I need you to talk to him, or what I mean, or you can't get ranked until you get your grades up. They'll do a lot of stuff that I think's pretty cool. Like I really do. It's just not my style, and I would if I tried to do it.
It's a little intrusive. It's kind of cool, but it's also intrusive in a way.
Yeah, and I think where all of us are a little non-traditional, that's why we think it's intrusive, right? So like I try to look at it on both sides. I'm like, that actually is cool. Like if you had an extra person that was really good with your kids, like there's a guy that recently was on Joe Rogan that why he's famous is some of his Instagram videos of how he's talking to his kids. Like there's a famous video where the kid was crying because he couldn't break a board and he hit it a couple times.
That guy. Yeah.
And that's why so like I don't have that ability. So like he said like, hey, I don't even know, but what he said, because I wouldn't know what to say, but he was like basically telling like things like this happen. It's okay to cry, and you're gonna be a man, and blah blah blah. And then he did what he needed to do, right? That is awesome. That's what I'm saying. Like I do think there's some great value in that for kids, and not and I think we have a great kids program, but I don't know. I guess sometimes I give, because for all what I'm saying, I'm just putting traditional martial arts in a big box, and I'm giving a lot of credit. But for all I know, all the ones around me are terrible, right? But again, I'm not talking trash because I send people there. I say they could do great, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like we're not. I think there's something with calling the coach. Like I went to karate when I was a kid, and you call the coach sensei or master or whatever. And it's just about learning, sir, and they would yell at you if you didn't do it. And things that if they did it to me as an adult, which some of these places do, they treat the adults the same as the kids. I could not handle that. I would kill somebody because I'm like, it's not how this works. Like we're equals right now.
Grown up man, I don't want to get yelled at by another man for it.
Yeah. And this is like, for example, I remember one of my friends was he's a lawyer, and he was representing a Taekwondo guy. And the guy goes by Master something, right? I don't want to say his name, but anyway, when like they thought it'd be cool to introduce, like, hey, this is Butch, he does jiu-jitsu. Like everybody thinks that everybody that does martial arts needs to meet each other.
Yeah, we're all the same.
Yeah, so I was like, hey, Mr. So-and-so, nice to meet you. And then he corrected me, said it's Master. And then I corrected him. I said, motherfucker, you ain't my master. Like, just like that. Like, nobody's like a random guy's going to tell me call him Master. Like, that's stupid. Like, we're starting on a bad foot already. Like, you know what I mean?
I always laugh when people ask me what they should call me. And I'm like, just Thomas.
Yes. Yeah.
Coach, maybe. Like, I'm technically a professor, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I know.
Well, here's the thing. Like, technically professor or whatever, but like, if somebody is paying me for jiu-jitsu instruction, then they're paying me for knowledge. You wouldn't go to a guitarist and say, hey, can you teach me how to play guitar? And then when I start teaching you how to play guitar, I call you master. When I play, like, that's what we're doing, right? And that's what it is. And it, like, if you need that stuff as an adult, you need to find yourself a dominatrix or something, like, or maybe one of Butch's Dutch friends, because they might know. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say clearly Thomas has the market set on those people.
We wound back to the swinging.
Yeah, it always ends back there, right? No, but I like it though, because I think oddly enough this is kind of important, because I think I know for a fact I get the exact same questions you get, Thomas, and Gary probably does too, because I literally, like last week or the week before, somebody was like, what should I call you, like somebody new, same thing. And I was like, you can just call me whatever. And I said it like that, and they're like, well then sensei. I was like, no, I meant like my name or dude or you know what I mean? Like I don't really care. And they laughed and they like thought, that I was being goofy, and I was like, no, like seriously, I repeated really what Gary just said. I'm your friend. Like when you come here, I'm my friend. And we kind of talked about this on a podcast before, and it really it started with Hoist for me. I used to be under Hoist, and again, I'm not saying nothing bad because I loved my time with him, but the thing was, like when we go out to dinner or go out to club in Charleston, my hometown, and people would be excited, hey, there's Hoist Grayson, come talk to him. And if they didn't know me and he had to introduce me, he'd introduce me as his student. And I'm like, well, I'm like, why are you saying that? We're at a club. Like you said, this is my friend Butch, right? Like that's what I would say. Like I don't ever go out, like, and of course all of us do, right? We go to Mexican or I don't know why I said Mexican, but any place to eat with our friends or after the gym. I'm not walking around being like, hey, here's all my students, right? Like I just think that's rude. Now, is it an accurate statement? Of course, yeah. They're learning from me. That's probably the definition of a student. But in my thing, go ahead.
I'll say it when like we know somebody, like when I'm talking to somebody and somebody brings somebody up and I'm like, oh, that's my student.
Yeah, that's different.
End of it, but yeah, I
yeah.
see
In a
what
jiu-jitsu context, it makes sense, right? And there's a time and a place. It rubbed me wrong, and it happens to me several times when I'd just be out with people, and I just felt like now we're making a class system. You're putting yourself above me, and you are. In Hoist's case, he is above me, right? Like that. He is the reason I started martial arts. He was, like he was a legend or is a legend, and I was proud to be under him. But at the same time, that still rubbed me wrong. Like, and it was completely true. Yeah, and I just so knowing the feeling that I had, like that meant I was like, well, I'm never gonna do that. So even though almost always, like just like you said, Tom, I'm not gonna say I've never said that because I'm sure I have, but I try not to because I just look at us all like friends, right? And the truth be known, like if I'm being like totally honest, I can learn from everybody, and that would make me a student if we're really going to break it down. Like sometimes people come in, show me something they learned on YouTube or from a DVD I never saw or something, and then so like technically I'm being a student at that time. So I think we should just all be equal. But it kind of, to me, again, it goes. I'm not trying to make Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all non-traditional, but I kind of am. At the same time, right?
Well, I think too, like when we go out to dinner, I'm not your student at dinner.
No.
You didn't teach me how to eat.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? We're sitting down and we're having dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's cool though, because I think Gary and we probably brought this up in random conversations, but like I do think it's important for people to hear like our point of view, and we're all pretty like-minded. Like we will do some traditional stuff, all of us, and even the bowing thing. Like obviously, I said I didn't do it, but I have done it when I visited people. I'm not against it totally. It's just not my thing. But there's a ton of stuff, right? Like I try to do the best I can to preserve whatever I can. I follow the belt system. That's being traditional, right? Like, and I say that because we used to goof around and because we're from West Virginia, we'd have camo belts sometimes, like just be goofy, right? And then it was
one of pink belts because I lost a bet once.
Yeah, or rainbow belt, exactly, yeah. And I remember, like, it was actually George Gurgel. I met him at Huntington. It was coming to do a private or something, and, like, we showed up in those camo belts, and then he kind of made a big deal out of it, right? And I was like, oh. Yeah, I was like, that might be a little disrespectful to black belts, or you know what I mean? Like, I didn't really put it all together. So I'm like, well, if it is disrespectful, then I won't. I'll try not to do it. Like, it may be the same thing. Maybe we'll do it in our gym if we're goofing around. And
but you don't want to go out and be offensive to people. Like,
absolutely.
an effort to be offensive.
Yeah, and that was a lot. It was, and it wasn't even like he made like when I say big deal, he just was like camo belt, huh? And just gave us a weird look and an awful face. That was it. And really, maybe he was kind of joking, but I was like, I just took I was like, yeah, I probably should.
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, it's fine. And that at the time, it was like, yeah, we were just goofy. Like we would have duct tape stripes and stuff like that. I don't know. But the reason we did was I was on like some karate website and I had all these different colored belts and I was like, well, just shoot. And they're like $2. So I just ordered a bunch for people and we'd goof around with them. And then everybody thought that was cool. It's kind of like having your own patch. Or like, yeah, we'll wear some camo belts, you know? And then, yeah. And again, came from a fun place. I think we even showed up to a Japanese jiu-jitsu tournament one time. And of course they're super traditional. So they were not cool with that either. Yeah, so it didn't last long. I think there's a couple still laying in our gym, and this is like years ago too. There's still a couple laying at the gym, you know. But listen, I think it's cool. Like I mean, in a weird way, I think it's cool that all of us are the way we are, meaning that and that we're talking about it because I like people to hear this too and know where we're coming from. Like if somebody came in and why are they like that? Why are they not like so much different than such and such, right? If you're not familiar, because all of us have watched like, you know, Karate Kid or some kind of movie, or you've seen the thing, Bow to Sensei, right? Like even if it's like Napoleon Dynamite or something, right? Like you know what's supposed to happen, and that's when they come there, they think all those things, and then just a bunch of dudes are like, yeah, just jump on the mat, man. We'll do this, you know?
Yeah, like people expect a lot more formality a lot of times when they first come in.
Yeah. Now, do either of you guys ever line up in like rank or anything like that?
Yeah, at the end of it,
Okay.
just to sign out, just because it's an easy way for everybody to find their spot.
Yeah. And we don't do that, but that one is one of the ones that I've contemplated throwing around a bunch of times because just what you just said, plus,
but only in no-gi.
Uh-huh.
Not in no-gi. We don't line up in rank by no-gi. We just line up.
Yeah.
And all my colored belts kind of make sure they get in the back.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. You were in front now.
Yeah, when I thought that it did in the gi is put some more respect on the belt too, right? Like, because if you're like, for me, for example, like half the time I don't even put my belt on, which I try to just be for like the people in the gym have respect for the belt, right? Like I try to do my best, but I'm just one of those guys. I'll throw my stuff on and go out, and if it falls off, I don't put it on back on or whatever.
Yeah, it falls off all the time. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah, so I try to, but like that's one of the things that I've noticed is like when I'm at other people's gyms and they do that, I just feel like it does give a level of respect, and then it gives people maybe some goals where like okay, well I don't want to be whatever however they do their lineup, but then maybe they're like a white belt at the back of the room and they're like, man, I want to start working my way up to the next row. I need to get my blue belt or something. You know what I mean? Like all those little things maybe mean something to somebody, you know. Yeah, I guess
sometimes like if you have a big class and you kind of can see like 2 purple belts,
yes,
4 belts, and like I don't know 15 white belts or something. So they
yeah.
can be like, okay.
It would be easier because that's what happens a lot. Like I'll show up with a general idea of what I'm going to teach, and then it's kind of, you know, mid-level or higher, and then I've got mostly white belts there, and I'm like, you know what I mean? But sometimes I have to literally kind of look around and figure out who it is. Where if I had them in a line, I could just say, okay, like you said, I could count them really easy. Say, all right, well, I'm going to change what I'm teaching tonight because it's mostly new people, and you know, this is not going to work for you guys or something like that. You know. Anything else you can think of, Gary, on the thing that we're missing? Any traditional things that you think?
I mean, as far as lining up in belt rank, I like, especially at the end of class, the lineup of belt rank is kind of like it's almost like tenure, you know, because if you've been there long enough to be a blue belt, if you've been there long enough to be a purple belt, like there should be some respect on that. We celebrate if you go to work and you've been at the same place for 10 years, then you get a 10-year celebration or whatever, but we don't really do that in jiu-jitsu so much. And other than somebody getting a black belt, but it should be noted. It should be recognized that somebody, hey, he's been here for a while, and there should be some respect on how much time has been put in to the sport. Doesn't mean that he's better than you. Doesn't mean he's going to tap you. It doesn't mean that guy he's not maybe he's not the best in the room, but he's still here. And I think that's kind of important. So it's a small way of paying respect to that guy who's been here that long.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, that's one thing I'm kind of tossing around about putting back in, but I can't think of anything else that that we're missing that's traditional type stuff. And again, I kind of wanted to run through it just so that people understand. This might be a good opportunity to, like, for people that don't know, to kind of get clued in on why things are ran a certain way, you know. At least that's my thought process. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'm boring the hell out of everybody. I don't know. But anyway, let's move on. So Thomas, we're joking ahead of time, but I want to see, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're talking about Ashley Lockwood's famous stories, and you just said that you started bouncing, right? Has anything crazy happened quite yet?
Not too much. Like, the worst thing is that somebody bit me in the cheek once. I had him in side control, and he bites me in the cheek. And
Like, he bites you hard?
No, so I just have him in side control, holding him down, and I feel like something wet. So I ask him, "Did you just bite me?"
Really?
He says, "Yeah, I fucking bit you." So I go on the belly, and then mount him. Because
Okay, well, first we got to rewind. What happened leading up to this? What was going on beforehand?
he was just some drunk dude, and he tried to make something out of nothing. So I body locked him when he kind of at me, and I just took him to side control. So I'm holding him down, and he bites me. So I asked him, and he's like, "Yeah, I bit you."
Yeah, you're like, you're gonna die.
And I'm like, "Wow, okay, that's really weird." So I go to my, I'm like, I don't know. I was kind of offended that he bit me. So
We should be. It's not really like a manly thing to do.
yeah, like I would have respected if he had swung at me.
Yeah.
You know, I would have been okay with that. I would have been upset. But the biting thing kind of was upsetting.
Well, here's why it should be extra upsetting. There's levels to a fight, right? Like, there's some unwritten rules, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, but there's some things you shouldn't do, and if you do them, you're taking the fight to the next level. And biting is one of them. That means now if you bit me,
escalate from the bottom.
yeah, like now, yeah, I can bite you. I can poke your eyes out. I can, you know what I mean? Like, you've taken it to a level that we didn't need to take it to, and now I would argue anything goes, right? Like, once you bit somebody,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be you know, somebody pulled out a weapon. You know what I mean? To me, it's like there's levels and there's things you don't do. Now, somebody else might argue it's a street fight. I'm gonna use whatever. Like we kind of talked about earlier, Krav, right? They're gonna say you should bite them, kick them in the nuts, do this and do that. Yeah, maybe in self-defense if you're a woman and this and that. But I think when you're able to fight, you should be able to fight. And I'm not gonna say like maybe you should never bite somebody.
In top control, and they're just head down. Like, if you're a purple belt or above, you can pretty much hold anybody down.
Yeah.
If they're held down, just hold them down. You don't have to excessively hit them.
No. Well, and clearly you and I are the same. Like, we have, and Gary probably too, like, we have the same kind of thought process, meaning that probably the nicer of the people. Like, we would mount somebody and be like, hey, you should calm down because this is not going to end well for you, right? Where most people might just mount somebody and beat the shit out of them because they're in a fight. And there's kind of nothing wrong with that. Like, it's the problem.
But like, at this point, I don't need to.
Yes, I agree with you. Right, I agree. And there's the thing, like, we're talking about something, you know, a hypothetical fight that could have a bunch of different scenarios. And I'm not saying there's never going to be a scenario where I don't do the same thing. You know, I mean, do something crazy because I'm so pissed off at the time and something happened. But that being said, like, I like to think that I would do the same as you. Is like, given the opportunity, we should give the person every opportunity to, give up or not kill them, or, you know, I mean, kill them by meaning punch the crap out of them.
Like, like hurt them excessively. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I think we talked about in another podcast, Gary and I. But that's kind of why we're like in all three of our minds. I'm sure it's the same. We would probably rather just choke somebody unconscious and then get up. Right? It's over. Right?
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's still like take their shoes and toss them on the roof or something.
Well, there's that.
Like do something so they can't run after me because they're gonna wake up.
Or just to make life a little bit more inconvenient at that point.
I'll just take their pants off. Get rid of
Yeah.
Toss their car keys in a lake or whatever. Yeah.
You know what's funny is that that scenario kind of happened to me, but not in like a fighting situation. But I was in Cancun, and I should have knew something was up. But all these people are like, they had this contest that was called Mr. Cancun or whatever, and all these girls are like, you should do it, and I'm like why? And they just kept saying, but they knew, like they were in on the joke, right? So, but I probably thought in my head like, all these girls think I'm good looking, so yeah, I'm gonna do this thing, So I do it, and we were all in a swimming pool at some kind of all-inclusive resort in Cancun. But what they did is like I think the girls had to go around. If they could collect your shorts, it was worth 500 points. So all these girls like would get the more points, if they got a bunch of shorts, right? So you're in a swimming pool, so you don't care. I'm like, okay, well, you can have my shorts. I don't care. So I take my shorts off. They put them in everybody's shorts in this bucket. They also did it for girls, by the way, and another thing. They're like, if you get their top, it's 200 points. If you get the bottom, it's 300, whatever it was. Well, that was the joke. So after they did it, they're like, you're all losers. And they took it and threw it on the roof. So then none of us had our shorts at that point. So I was like, what the fuck? And I'm almost positive it was like our first day on the trip. Like my wife and I. So like I'm sitting in this pool with like no shorts, and I'm like, how am I going to get out of here? And it was like pretty strict rule. They're like, if you get out and we see your thing, you will be kicked out. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. It's not like it was my option. Like you did it to me, right? So, but anyway, just to go back on one of those stories. I mean, yeah, it's not good. So if you did that, I 100% was. What's that?
You can't leave it hanging.
Whoa, yes. No, I was lucky enough to get, my wife went back to the room and found another pair of shorts. So yeah, I was good. But that process, even that thought wasn't going through my head. Like I was just like, I am in a swimming pool with a bunch of people I don't know with no fucking shorts on, and everybody knows. That's the other thing. It wasn't like you just have no shorts on and nobody's talking. Everybody's laughing at you. Like, there's a lot going on. So I was like, so my brain was short circuiting. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know what to do. And probably my wife was the smart one. I was like, well, how about I just get you another pair of shorts? I'm like, that would be smart, So anyway, yeah, that's how you learn things the tough way. So I'll never go for Mr. Cancun again. But to your point, that is a good ideal, because if you do that, nobody's going to fight you. And they may not. Like I have another story with talk about nakedness, but there was another time where I was cutting weight for like a fight of some kind. This is in the night, so it's probably a boxing or kickboxing fight. But it was cutting weight. So the only way I knew how to do it, I was in Cleveland at the time, so the only way I knew how to do it, I'd go to this sauna all the time, just wear a bunch of clothes, do push-ups and jumping jacks in the sauna, whatever, fully clothed. But at that time, that wasn't like a normal thing. Like we're talking about the 90s, so there wasn't a bunch of like MMA fighters running around. There wasn't a bunch of people. So like people are freaked out that I had all my clothes on in like the sauna, right? And then I think... like I was walking through, you had to walk through the swimming pool area to get to the sauna. So I have all my clothes on, right? Shoes, everything. So this woman was like going crazy. She's like, take your shoes off, like yelling at me. And I was like, dude, no, like I need them on. Like I'm going to go in here and work out. She's like, take your goddamn shoes off, like going crazy. That never goes well right? Like I don't like when people are yelling at me and not listening, like not having a rational conversation. She's like, you better take your effing shoes on. And I was like, shut up, bitch. Like, just like that, whatever. I escalated too. Yeah. So I go in the sauna, and her husband's in there. But this guy's like 60 or 70, completely buck naked. And he jumps up, gets in my face. He's like, did you just call my wife a bitch? I was like, yeah, she's yelling at me. Like, she should tell her to stop. Like, I'm trying to work out. And he's like, you don't call my wife a bitch. You should apologize. Like, she should apologize to me. Like, I'm just here to work out. There's nothing else. And so he's like, I'd whoop your ass and, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I don't know if you guys ever saw this movie. It was also popular in the 80s and 90s. It's called Cocoon, where like these old people would get like regenerated and become young. Like odd phrase, but anyway, like I'm thinking, I feel like I'm in this movie of Cocoon because it was like a bunch of 70-year-olds all trying to fight me. It's just me, and I'm like I was like, guys, just like first of all, I'm getting ready for a fight. Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
not the guy you want to mess with. Yeah, and this is not a good age difference for you guys. And then and they like the guy pushed me a couple of times, and I was like, dude, like I am not gonna fight you. Like you're old, and he's like, I'm old enough to be your dad or something, some stupid comeback, And I was like, dude, you're old enough to be my dad's dad. Like settle down, And I think he tried to do something, and there was a bunch of old people holding him back. I just remember his dick flopping around, and I was like, I will never fight a naked guy. It's not going to happen. I don't know what goes on in your mind, but this is like, and I guess that's where I know a rule now. Like if somebody tries to fight me naked, it's not going to happen. I'm going to do everything I can not to fight a naked guy.
Brawl.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So like, I would say if anything positive came from that, I would never have thought of that, but I'm like, well, there's one thing in the world I'm not going to do, and that's wrestle around with a naked guy. So we're going to call it quits.
No swinging.
Yeah, so nothing happened. Eventually, the front desk person came and broke up this imaginary fight that was never happening. It was so weird. And the guy was even on my side. He's like, dude, I saw it all. Like you're fine. You're in the right, but I have to do something. So just leave the sauna. I was like,
wise honor.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I guess, Anyway, sorry to get off on that with naked people, but just reminds me of some old Cleveland days.
Well, I think the thing is like fights. The rules are dictated usually by the desperation of the person losing, right?
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
as you said, the guy that you held down in side control, like he was probably out of options as to what to do.
Yeah.
And so he tried to bite you. And the old guy, naked, he felt that he needed to do like some sort of defense for his woman, I guess. I don't know. But when you're out of options, I always think back to that first UFC when Hoist was fighting the boxer, and he takes him down and he gets mounted, and the guy didn't have any options, and so his only option left would have been to bite him or to tap out.
Yeah.
And he was only mounted. He tapped to being mounted. He just didn't know what to do. And that's the thing, is like, you don't a lot of times in a fight, I don't think we think that that getting a dominant position kind of solidifies. And obviously whoever is in control in a fight can take the fight wherever they want to. But I think the desperation sometimes kind of opens up what the real rules are.
Yeah. No, absolutely, right? I think that's where you start to see dirty stuff. And again, even though I'm saying I'm getting like, if you're in a like fight and you feel like you're fighting for your life or what, yeah, I get it, man. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's beating the dog shit out of you, and I remember watching a fight in high school one time where this guy was getting the crap beat out of him. Now, he didn't have to do this, but he did it. And the funny thing is he did it another 2 or 3 times after. So I don't know if this kid was like an asshole, but because he got at least 3 fights that I saw. But anyway, he would get beat up in all the 3 fights, and he would bite the guy's nipple. And he won all 3 fights because they scream. They're like, let go of my nipple. Like scream. Like I would too. And he would just be like trying to rip it off. And he won all 3 of those fights. And it's burned in my memory like for life. Because I'm like, yeah, like, and that could easily happen. I could be mounted on somebody trying to like put pressure down. Next thing you know, they just jump up and bite my boob, my man boob. And then, all of a sudden now I'm at the bottom screaming and crying,
I don't know. I don't know. Have you ever seen the Boss Rudin response to that?
No, is he have that already lined out?
He has a story where he talks about these ninjas coming into his school.
Yeah, I know this one. But go ahead. Yes, I know this one. Go.
Gouge his eyes out. So he starts it with a rear naked choke. He's going to gouge his eyes out. And he says, like, all right, the moment I feel that you gouge my eyes out, I'm going to break your neck.
Really? Yeah.
And then he's like, wait, what? You can do that? Yep.
Yeah. And again,
like if somebody's gouge my eyes out, like, first of all, I'm probably going to be on mount if we're going to fight. So good luck gouging my out from mount. from bottom mount, right? So, and you've never done that before. You've gouged out 0 eyes in your life.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah. Well, think about Yuki Nakai getting his.
What?
I said, think about Yuki Nakai. Remember that in that legendary Japan Valley Jiu fight where he was getting his eyes gouged out, which he ended up winning the fight and then fought another. You know, he's also blind for life, right?
Yeah, but that guy is like abnormally tough for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's the true samurai spirit, right? That's why he's famous. I mean, I don't, you know, for if there's ever a time that it's worth getting your eyes gouged out, I guess he's a legend. We're all still talking about him. I guess if that's worth it for you. I don't know if that'd be worth it for me. Maybe. Yeah,
But like, no, but like Gary was saying, if the bottom guy starts escalating by biting, well, then you can posture up and just start hitting him.
absolutely, yeah.
Like,
But
attacking somebody with your face is pretty much like you're gonna freak out, but as long as you see how I'm holding my boob.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I have ghost things from that story.
Me too. Well, me too. That's why I don't like. As we talk about what we do, I'm like, I don't know if somebody's actually ripping my nipple off. Like, I don't.
I'm gonna get mad, I think, first.
I don't know what I do.
And then cry about it.
Yeah. Well, Gary, next time we meet up, can you bite my nipple and then I'll bite yours and we can work on some defenses or something?
Well, actually, the biting thing that what. Go ahead, Thomas.
So we're back to the swinging.
Yeah.
Always back to this. Well, but what I was saying is like the guy who is getting bested, the guy who's losing the fight determines the real rules.
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about Tyson Holyfield and biting the ear.
Yeah.
How many fights have you seen where a guy is losing, then he throws an intentional low blow
Or headbutt. Yeah.
or headbutt? Like he's the guy losing dictates what the rules are. Because if I'm winning, if we're fighting and I'm winning and I'm tagging you, bop, 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 I'm winning by these rules. I don't need anything extra. And so the guy who is losing gets to dictate what new stuff. I think we lost Thomas, but he's coming back. But the guy losing he's going to decide what real rule set we're playing by, unless we have a referee or something like that. But if we don't have a referee, we go into, and we've talked about it before. I tell my guys all the time that we train self-defense, we train for fights, but we only kind of know what a fight is. We don't really know what the fight is because fights are inevitably, there are too many variables for us to pretend that we're training for everything. We don't train for people to gouge our eyes. We don't really train for people to try and fish hook. We actually tell everybody, hey, no eye gouging, no fish hooks, don't do these things. And we all come in, and I tell the guys, like when we're in here on the mats, we clap hands and we know that the fight ends when somebody says uncle, right? Yeah. And it's not like that in a street fight. So if you're bouncing or if you are talking to somebody's girlfriend and they don't like it and whatever happens, it's a bar, like that fight is not what we're training for. And you need to know the difference.
Which makes that, sorry. My printer's printing randomly. Somebody must be. Oh, sorry, I had to turn that off. That's random. Here was what I'm glad I got that turned off, but if I don't, I'll turn it off again. But this is what I was thinking. Speaking of, and there really wasn't nothing dirty in this fight, but did you guys watch that fight last night, the Fury Wilder fight?
I only seen the highlights.
Did you? Well, the highlights, I imagine. So, I mean, they're saying it's one of the best heavyweight fights of all time. I mean, it was pretty amazing. And I don't watch a ton of boxing, but I all their fights have been good. So I thought, well, I'm going to watch that. honestly, it was amazing. Did you see any of it, Thomas?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, my wife fell asleep, which I want her to see it, so I almost want to replay it because she was asking about it, and
incredible,
crazy. And I mean, how can you not like Tyson Fury? He's just a likable guy, right? I don't know if there's people that don't like him, I'm sure, but I mean, that dude's his interviews are hilarious. Everything's when he came out in the walkout and he's playing air guitar to AC/DC during his walkout, and just then he sang that Leaving Memphis, Living in Memphis song or whatever.
This long ass song. Yeah, the whole
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's comical, but it's like I don't know. It's I know some people probably don't like the not purity of that, right? But like I like to be entertained. I'm watching these fights to be entertained, right? Like so like
Yeah,
I'm
it's fun.
entertained.
That's why I liked Pride.
Yeah, yeah. And they were a little over the top.
Yeah, but that's what I miss about the UFC these days.
Well, it's funny because here's what I thought is I run into a ton of boxing people and they're like, I used to like the UFC and I quit liking it because it's too much like the WWE. And I hear that every day, every day. And I assume they're talking about Conor McGregor or whatever, right? Because that's not true. Like when they say that, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like there's the Colby Covington. There's always people that talk trash, right? Like
Yeah,
so that's no different than boxing. And then that's what made me think of it last night. I was like, this is 1,000 times worse than anything I've seen in the UFC. Like for Gary, I know you didn't see it, but like Tyson Fury came out in a full Spartan getup with a bunch of dancers surrounded by him. And even before that, there's a guy dressed up like a male, dressed up like a gypsy with makeup doing these weird like shit from Harry Potter. Like he's putting on sorcery spells, right? Like that was weird, right? And then and then Wilder did the same. You know, he had that goofy mask on. You know, whatever. His wasn't nearly as bad, but it was like an LED mask that came. It was like it was over. Plus, they had some WWE guy announce them, right? Like, and again, I was entertained by it. Like, I'm fine with it. I just thought, like, for all you boxing purists that tell me every day that I don't watch MMA because it's too WWE, that is the most WWE stuff that I have ever seen, period. Whether it's Pride, anybody like Pride and K1, those entrances were epic, right? And they'd come up out of the smoke with an elevator ramp, and then you had that,
dancing troops and stuff.
yeah, and you had that woman with that crazy voice screaming, you know, like, yeah, and rolling her R's for like an hour, like, you know, like it was awesome. It was a spectacle. Um, Then for that matter, on like old K1, I used to have a shit ton of K1 fights, but even on their VHS tapes, they would add like crazy graphics. They'd have like dragons coming down, which was post production, like yeah, like nobody'd be seeing it. Yeah, it was I thought it was cool, man. I'm good with that stuff. But you know, like anyway, yeah, and I like Mortal Kombat. Like, listen, if people are gonna fight, that's when like when they're talking trash even about these YouTube fights, I'm like, look, you know, if I think it's gonna be entertaining, I'll watch it. I think it's kind of goofy, like because people are still making it a boxing versus MMA thing, which is funny because they only will say that when the Paul brothers fight. Like they're like, oh, they kicked your ass, but meanwhile, Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort are beating real world champions, and nobody's saying a word like, oh, MMA is better than boxing. Like nobody says anything, and these are real world champions. These aren't Ben Askrens or retired MMA fighters. You know what I mean, like it's very weird, but maybe we're dealing with two different, you know, groups, sets of people, you know, because my kid would be the one that's a YouTuber. He knows nothing. He's 14, right? He thinks he knows, like all 14-year-olds, so he'll tell me.
I love the Paul brothers, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how old it is, but I saw him, like if he fights Tyson Fury's brothers, Tommy Fury, he'll murder him. But I also saw that he was trying to call out Jorge Masvidal, and I mean he definitely. You know, that's a little tougher fight, but he's definitely picking people that he's seen a hole in, right? Like that he's like, oh, and he picked Jorge Masvidal after he gets knocked out by Usman, so he's like, oh well, if he took that right hand, I've got a good right hand. You know, like whatever. Yeah, they're well, like he has the option to pick his own fights, and to be honest, most boxers up until like 30 fights pick all easy fights anyway, right? To get to the title fight. MMA, that's why I kind of like.
They're making
What's
their
that?
money too.
Absolutely.
So, like, I don't. At first, I was a little bit like, oh, now they're getting all these high-profile fights, but they're making everybody hella money that these people never
Yes.
make in their career and that they rightfully deserve. So, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Let's run
Yeah.
everybody.
I agree, and I think most of those people would agree to that. I mean, that's why Woodley wants that rematch. He's going to get another $1 million, right? Like,
Yeah, but let somebody else do it.
yeah,
There's plenty of fighters.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, and that's it. Yeah, and they're generally entertaining. The only time I haven't liked one was like one of the Triller cards that was I can't remember who Jake Paul or whoever fought, but it was like it just had all that hip hop concert stuff, like
That's when he fought the basketball player. Was that one?
yeah,
Like,
maybe. it's just I know Justin Bieber had like a long. It was like I turned on to watch fights, and I think Tom DeBlas even posted on his Instagram was something like I thought I was watching a fight, and unfortunately I'm watching a bad hip hop concert or something like that. It was like even my kids like. There's some Doja Cat. I don't even know these people, but they were singing. I know they got pop songs, but like,
you're missing out.
yeah, they were like not like they were just lip syncing, but they're just they're dancing like strippers, like doing weird stuff. And even my kids, again, I'm a terrible parent, but they were like, "Dad, should I be watching this?" And I was like, "You're here, just keep watching it, I guess." I mean, so it is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is. Well, anyway, so. Let's do that. Do you have? How can people get a hold of you, Thomas, and get to your joint? And unless you have anything else to add, Gary, that's what I'm thinking. Gary, any?
No. Where you said you're close to Aspen, but what's the best way to contact you?
So the best way is probably through Facebook, Ground Zero Roaring Fork Valley, or gzrfv.com. That's our website, but it's under construction. But yeah, I'm trying to build this gym here, and it's going awesome. Having a great time. It's so cool. So
it is awesome, man. Yeah, it's awesome to see you doing that and kicking some butt.
If you guys are ever in the area, because this is an amazing vacation spot. Like if you want to ski, this is the best place. If you want to like hike, climb, this is the best place. So whether it's summer or winter, come down, do a seminar, do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And ironically, I think we text back and forth, but I did go through Denver once, but it was only to pick up an RV because my family had this idea that we go on this somewhat Midwest RV trip, which is horrible. I'm not a camper, but that's neither here nor there. But it was really nice. Like when I came through, and then we went through whatever. I'll mess up some geography, so. I'll just start saying random states that aren't even on that side, so I better stop while I'm in.
I think it's Wyoming up north here first.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I was there, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's not too far.
Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. I wanted to go there and see some aliens, but I didn't. Because don't they have that mountain that the government has some mountain with a secret door?
Yeah, I think it's something like the Stargate is there or something.
Yeah. See, Gary, look at that. We go to different worlds. I say. So, can you do this for one last thing? Can you say your last name again, so that way I can remember it?
Yeah, Thomas Uylenbroek.
God dang. Okay. Yeah, all right.
You got just spell it, man.
I swear to God, I thought I had it down because I know that you would say every time, like, that's not how you say my name. I was like, man, I got it. I was so confident when we started this thing. So. Oh.
The first guy who ever said it right was Jason Butcher.
Oh, really?
In the U.S. to ever say it right, yeah.
Did he do it like you tell him how to do it?
Yeah, it's one go.
Really? Well.
Just one go, no problem.
All right, Gary, it's your turn. Can you knock it out? We'll wrap it up if you can say his name right.
Not a chance, but I'll try. Thomas Uylenbroek.
That's not bad.
I tried. But hey, it's been a pleasure, man, and thank you for joining us on the podcast. If I'm ever out in the Aspen area, I'll definitely pop over and see you.
Come down and do some snowboarding.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, actually, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure. It's good talking to you. And it's also, I mean, I love talking to jiu-jitsu guys across the country. So this will give everybody an option when they travel. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right, man. Well, you guys have a good night. I'm going to go see if the Browns won or lost.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.